Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This time, we're going back to cover Bill Goldberg's debut in the WWE. It's the fallout from WrestleMania 19. It's Backlash 2003. Cush, what does it feel like to have survived WrestleMania season?
It almost doesn't feel like it could possibly be over. Because even though it's only been like the last 3 months of our lives, it genuinely feels like that's all I've talked. I've said the word
Yeah.
WrestleMania so many times in the past few months that I don't know how to live without it.
Yeah, it is strange to kind of the WrestleMania detox after WrestleMania season is always like a big transition to just do like some regular 3 hour pay-per-views that aren't, dripping with history. Although I gotta say, for a backlash, this one was pretty big. Like we've got Goldberg's debut, Rock's second to last match for 7 years. Steve Austin's just retired. Kevin Nash has just come back to the company. It's John Cena's first big match. Like, there's a lot going on here.
I tell you what, let me pitch you an idea that was kind of rolling around in my head while I was watching this show. What if this show was the invasion show?
I
Every
had
single
not thought about that, but
every
like,
single one of these matches is WCW versus WWE. Every single one.
except Cena versus Lesnar.
Except Cena versus Lesnar, yes.
But yeah, like,
Like if on the actual Invasion show we had gotten Goldberg versus The Rock and Big Show versus Mysterio and the Dudleys versus Kane and Van Dam, Rikishi versus O'Haire, Los Guerreros versus Team Angle, and like Triple H,
yeah,
Jericho and
just
Michaels.
reshuffle the six-man tag match a little bit to make it WWF versus WCW. Like, get Shawn Michaels away from Nash and Booker.
Is that not just like the most phenomenally hot Invasion pay-per-view?
It's better than the actual invasion was.
Not even a question.
But yeah, I mean that's sort of where they were was they couldn't get their own guys over. So the only thing they could do that was hot is bring in guys from WCW.
Absolutely. And they kind of lucked into the fact that like Goldberg didn't want to come.
Yeah. He had zero interest. I mean he did sit out his Turner contract and he got paid. And then the story I've heard is like him and Rock just like ran into each other in the airport. Like I think they were both between flights, like hanging out in the VIP room, and like they just kind of kicked it, like had a drink and started chatting. Like, what if? What if you came in and we got to work together? And like you can just envision these two like former star football players bonding and being like, hell yeah, brother, let's do that.
And it's one of those things where if Rock isn't on his way out, I'm not sure this ever happens. But at this point, Rock is exercising basically all of his influence to just do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he goes to Vince and be like, look, I want my last match to be versus Goldberg.
Yeah.
Let's bring him in.
Give me Goldberg. I want to put him over.
Goldberg will come in, but only if I get to wrestle him. That's the agreement.
Yeah, like that. I 100% think Goldberg doesn't come in if not for Rock's influence and like the fact that he was going to get to work a match with Rock. And for him, he's going to come in, he's going to get his like probably couple $1 million, and he's going to be adios. He's in for a year, and that's it.
That's the fascinating thing, is that not at that time, not now, and not ever have they signed people to 1 year contracts, especially stars of that magnitude.
Yeah, he was only going to do a 1 year deal, I think, and it's the last year of his wrestling career until 2016, which is crazy.
Yeah, here in 2003, he debuts the night after, basically the night after WrestleMania, and here in 2020, he just main evented WrestleMania.
Yeah,
That's weird.
yeah, not what we would have anticipated back then, and we definitely wouldn't have anticipated like a 12-year gap between matches for him.
And he still looks the same. He basically looks the same.
Yeah. He's a little slimmer, but he is in phenomenal shape.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, this couldn't have come at a better time for them as Steve Austin has just been forced to retire because of his neck issues. Triple A or Kurt Angle has just had neck surgery, and The Rock is about to leave to go back to Hollywood. So they are really in need of some star power.
I don't know where they would have gone with The Rock or with any of this without Goldberg coming in. I don't know what the next year would have looked like.
Well, the big thing they had is Austin versus Bischoff was going to be like the big story on Raw for at least the next 6 months, if not the next year. And that gets thrown out, like when Austin's neck is so bad he has to retire.
And if Nash doesn't tear his quad, I'm sure Triple H Nash goes. No, wait, that's the year before, isn't it? That's where he's coming back from.
No, yeah, he's back for like 6 months here, and then he leaves to shoot the Punisher, and then I think they just have no interest in bringing him back, and his contract runs out like early in 2004. I think he was on a 2-year deal.
So the real question is, what the hell does Triple H do if Goldberg doesn't come? Like, by the time we get to the fall, who the fuck is there for him to face? Much less for Evolution to face.
I have, no idea.
Because Evolution is where they're going, and I think at this point they already know they're headed that way.
Yeah, well, the Evolution already exists. They debuted like back early in the year. It's just Orton and Batista both got hurt, like right after they formed the group. So Orton and Batista are both out. Like Orton's going to be back in like a month or two. Batista's not back for like another 6 months.
Yeah, and they know that that's what they're going with for the rest of the year.
Who the hell would fight Evolution? Like, Triple H already beat everybody on Raw.
God, there's nobody.
Yeah. Michaels, more of those matches.
I guess you could have turned Jericho face. That's not great at this point, and eventually they'll do it anyway out of boredom. Kane and Van Dam. It's
you beat both them already.
Yeah, it's not great, man. It's not a great list.
Yeah. So Goldberg debuted the night after WrestleMania. The Rock was doing a big celebration, and, kind of cheesily, he's like, well, the question is, what's next for The Rock? And then Goldberg's music hits, and he comes out, he tells Rock, you're next, and nails him with the spear. Huge debut. I was so fired up when this happened.
And it was a really great segment, too. I mean, it's one of those classic segments. Because everybody knew that Goldberg was coming. Like, it had gotten around to all the websites and, like, all the dirt sheets. And, like, everybody in the crowd and at home knew that this was a Goldberg segment. So, basically, they had to acknowledge it. Because the crowd is chanting Goldberg the entirety of the time that The Rock is out there. Resulting in a classic line from The Rock, don't think The Rock is impressed just because his accountant's name was Ira Goldberg.
Yeah.
And then Goldberg comes out and spears him, like, just so well.
Yeah. Drills him with the spear. Great debut. And, I think they booked him fine for these first couple weeks. The problems don't really start to emerge until a little later. Although I do think somewhere in here we have the segment where his car won't start.
Just the most hideously embarrassing segment imaginable to have Goldberg be a part of. Goldberg and cars don't mix.
No. I mean, that's one really nobody's fault. It's just the kind of shit that sometimes happens when you're doing live TV.
Yep. There's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah. I think this show is kind of a turning point, though, where because he gets booed here against Rock, like, I think the writers, like, get in their own heads about, like, oh, we got to make him different. Like, let's get him some different gear. Like, he needs to talk more. He needs to be more vulnerable. Let's, make him a character instead of just a killing machine. And that ends up, like, being the problem with his run, is they don't just book him like WCW Goldberg.
The problem with WCW Goldberg is, by the time he got to somebody like The Rock in the longer matches, he had time to establish himself by, like, killing a bunch of people first. And maybe that would have been a better way for him to come in, as at least on, like, the Raws leading up, for him to get, like, some 30-second matches against Rico or whatever, just to establish him as a murder 15-minute match with The Rock, because that's not his style. And it exposed him a little bit here.
No, I thought this was a very good match.
It is.
I think, like, Rock was absolutely at the top of his game, and, like, Goldberg was fine here, considering, it's a longer match for him.
But, like, it's one of those, it's kind of like how when Shawn Michaels wrestled Diesel at WrestleMania, it was a good match, but one guy shone, and it wasn't the guy they wanted.
Yeah, Rock did really outwork Goldberg here.
And that was inevitable. Like, you're putting Goldberg in an impossible scenario if you're asking him to do better than The Rock.
Yeah. Um, so that's the big match on Raw. Over on SmackDown, we've got a new star rising as John Cena will challenge Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. Cena won an 8-man tournament to become #1 contender. He beat Eddie Guerrero, The Undertaker, and John Cena in 3 consecutive matches. Like, he has got the rocket up his ass at this point.
And it's so funny because 6 months prior to this, he was not very far along. And then Goldberg puts him out. He needs like knee surgery or whatever it was that he needed. And then when he comes back, it's just totally different. It's like he gets the rocket from this point until now.
Yeah, I mean, 6 months before this, like back in the fall, they were probably going to cut him at the end of the year. Like,
God, yeah.
They were doing nothing with him. And then he starts freestyle rapping on the bus during a European tour. And Stephanie McMahon and or Bruce Pritchard like overhear him and get the idea that maybe he should do it on TV.
Do you get the impression that Rikishi's freestyle raps weren't very good since he was also doing it and he didn't get to be a rapper?
Nobody was like, hey, what if Rikishi did that on TV?
We don't need a fat rapper.
No. But yeah, it's just like the craziest thing. John Cena may well still have had a successful career in wrestling. I think he still would have, but like, if he gets fired here, he's not John Cena. Like,
no.
He's not the legend. He's not the franchise player of WWE. And like, I don't know what would have become of WWE because they would have had a real tough time without him in the late thousands.
See, like, I think this company becomes built entirely around Randy Orton.
Oh boy, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
I don't think it can succeed like that. I don't think. Ooh, that's a lot. I don't know. That's big time trouble for me.
So yeah, the growth of Cena. It starts out when they have him dress as Vanilla Ice and do some rapping on the Halloween episode of SmackDown. And then it becomes his character full time that he raps. And like, there's some misfires. They give him Bull Buchanan as his bodyguard, and that's not amazing.
I mean, the amount of times they just tried to find something for Bull to do because he could jump high. God bless you if you can jump 3 feet in the air. You'll have a career for life.
And then, yeah, when he got hurt and in kayfabe Brock took him out, and then like for months he's just doing these segments each week where he rips on Brock and his raps, and it just builds and builds and builds, and he got so overdoing it.
Yeah, I think they intended it to be sort of like a hardcore Holly, like a transitional, like 1 month contender thing. I don't think originally when he started cutting these promos, I'm not even super sure that they intended to do a program with him and Lesnar after that. I assumed that they were going to like get to a match or something, but I don't think it was going to be necessarily to this stature or with this level of push to it. It's just that when he started doing it, this injury was the best thing that could have happened to him because they took him off screen and he wasn't wrestling, which is the worst part of his game at this point.
Which was not something he was very good at this point.
And he had no idea how to do it with this character. Like, he was just trying to figure it out, and it was very clunky and weird. And he clearly didn't know how to wrestle as a heel super well without being the prototype. So he was working on that, but he could just cut these promos and these, like, vicious, emotional raps on Lesnar that kind of showed his range a little bit. And yeah, by the time he comes back, he is in just a completely different stratosphere.
Yeah. A meteoric rise to go from let's get rid of this guy to world title match on a pay-per-view 6 months later.
Somehow throughout WWE history, no one ever seems to make it as a huge star without getting injured for 9 months and coming back. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
It's just how it works, man.
It's almost, I mean, I feel like it's almost what it takes to get hot and get refreshed is to go away for a little while.
If only there was a way they could do that without people getting injured, like say taking people
season.
off. Yeah, in off season. Gosh.
Or just giving guys breaks sometimes. Just building it in like, okay, you've been on the road for a year straight. Take 2 months off and get healthy. I mean, how much has Dolph Ziggler needed this throughout his career instead of just being on TV every single week and doing nothing?
And that's the thing. Is it just like, if the New Day went away for 4 months and came back, how much more excited would you be to see them on TV than it being every single fucking week? It's if Orton went away, Jesus Christ, Randy Orton has not been injured in like 10 years, and he just comes out every week and is there. Can we stop?
The other big storyline features somebody who knows everything about getting injured and going away. It's the return of Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash!
He made his first appearance in nearly a year on the Raw 2 weeks after WrestleMania, where he saved Shawn Michaels from a beating from Triple H, Ric Flair, and Chris Jericho. Then the next week, he explained that he was tired of Triple H and Michaels fighting. Like, these are two of his best friends in the world. He wants them to settle their differences. Triple H, refuses Nash's offer to mediate, and he basically says if Nash isn't against Michaels, then he's against Triple H, and they are no longer friends. It's heartbreaking.
This is a great couple of segments, because when he comes back, you forget how impressive Kevin Nash looks when you haven't seen him for a while. He comes around that curtain just big as a fucking house. Like gorgeous blonde hair, like wafting in the wind. Like looks like a matinee idol who's 7 feet tall and full of muscle. It doesn't make sense.
No.
And you haven't seen him in so long. Yeah. Because like due to how bad this WWE run goes, he's got his run here is basically the same as Goldberg's, but Goldberg got a second act, and so we remember Goldberg more fondly. If Nash had got a better second act when he came back for that whole CM Punk thing, I think we would think of this period differently too. But like he was so fucking over here.
Yeah.
And people wanted to see him so
people
bad.
Just kind of forget he was a mega star in WCW a couple years before this. He was one of the hottest baby faces in wrestling.
You could argue that he was a bigger star than Goldberg. And in fact, I would argue that he was a bigger star and babyface than Goldberg was at Goldberg's peak.
That's a hot take. I don't think I agree with that.
It's pretty close.
There were rumors he was going to come back as Diesel, but it doesn't happen. It's kind of a hybrid character. He's got like the Diesel theme music, and his hair is a little darker, but not like the jet black Diesel color. I mean, what do you think? Should he have come back as Diesel? How do you think that would have worked?
I don't think it would have worked considering that this storyline is about Kevin Nash and not about Diesel. Like if they were going to do something different with him, maybe. But yeah, this is about like Michael Hickenbottom and Paul Levesque and Kevin Nash.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. So tonight we get a 6-man tag match with Nash, Michaels, and Booker T against Triple H, Flair, and Jericho. That's kind of a different way of booking to do the tag match here. You rarely got kind of like 6-man tag matches involving main eventers on pay-per-view. What do you make of that?
I love a 6-man tag match. Let me tell you, like, it doesn't make sense that they don't make more use of this. To take all of these main eventers who are all in disparate storylines with each other, but none of them like the others, and they've all interacted and meshed together in so many ways, and put them in a match like this, where everyone's got a grudge against somebody else and everyone's uneasy allies, it helps to progress those stories without actually hurting anybody. Anyone can lose this match. It doesn't fucking matter. It almost doesn't count as a real match, while at the same time giving you an opportunity to do something with all of these guys. It's like the perfect cop-out. Like, you can do anything with the 6-man tag, and like you get away scot-free. It's beautiful.
Yeah, this just is something random that stands out to me. That like, whenever I think of like this pay-per-view, I always think, oh yeah, that's the one where they did that 6-man tag match. I wonder why they didn't do that more frequently. Like, particularly here, where clearly they're trying to not give away so much on their pay-per-views. This is one of the last like joint Raw and SmackDown pay-per-views before they switch to kind of exclusive Raw pay-per-views and SmackDown pay-per-views for the B shows. I think it would have made more sense if they had kept doing the joint pay-per-views and just booked more like this, where they don't put all their big matches on every single pay-per-view so they don't burn through the matches so fast.
I completely agree. And there's like an infinity combinations. And the good thing about that too is I've often said that like characters never seem to interact with each other these days unless they're directly in a feud with each other. The good thing about a match like this, and I'm going to have to say New Japan. I know people out there are probably sick of me constantly bringing up New Japan, But in this case, that's the New Japan model, is you have singles matches at pay-per-views, and in between, you just do six-mans. Everybody's in a stable, everybody's got their group of friends, and you just duke it out in six-man tags all the way to the singles matches that come at the pay-per-view. And what that does is allows, like, fucking Rico to interact with The Rock and find out if there's, like, something there, or, like, young guys, like, interacting with, like, John Cena could have mixed it up with Brock Lesnar before his match, and you find out if the crowd's, like, really digging that or not. Like, you get the opportunity to see all of this stuff without actually doing the match that you're eventually going to do. I can't say enough about it. Like, that's the reason, one of the reasons that New Japan's so successful, is they realize that on small shows, people really just want to see these guys. They don't really care what they do. And then on the big shows, like, it's time for business, and all your guys are rested because they haven't been killing themselves all week.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of benefits to this style of booking in my mind.
Absolutely.
So to get into the show, it's Sunday, April 27th, 2003. We're at the Worcester Centrum in Worcester, Massachusetts. What do you make of a pay-per-view being in Worcester?
I feel like back in the Attitude Era, every pay-per-view was from Worcester somehow. Like, every time I remember them being like, live from Worcester, Massachusetts.
It's definitely a very, like, WWF town.
Yeah, back in the day when they would run, like, A house show cards and B house show cards, when Hogan ran Boston, Ricky Steamboat would run Worcester. That's
this was this would be a solid B house show.
Yeah, this is like the king of the B towns.
Sellout crowd of about 10,000 for a $450,000 gate. Not a bad house for Worcester.
Not at all.
No,
and I mean I feel like it always
it's kind
drew.
of indicative of, like, the afterglow of the Attitude Era. $450,000 is a hell of a lot more than they were doing for gates, in B towns before the Attitude Era.
Oh, it's not even close. Like, they were. Yeah. Like, they were lucky to do like 100,000, if that. They were lucky they didn't have to pay people to be there.
Yeah, just have a bunch of drunks off the street in the crowd.
Gotta love those drunks. Always helping you out when you need it.
Buy rate is a pretty soft 0.67 for 345,000 buys. That's down from 400,000 the previous year for Hogan versus Triple H. That is not a great number for Rock versus Goldberg.
Why do you think that is? Do you think people just weren't that interested in Goldberg?
That's probably the thing that stands out to me is just maybe WWE's audience wasn't as familiar with Goldberg as we thought they'd be.
I mean, just anecdotally, to use me as an example of someone who was primarily a WWE fan, didn't know who Goldberg was, didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
It was cool when they started showing packages to, like, let me know who Goldberg was. And by this point, I was, like, reading wrestling magazines, and so I knew who he was, but it didn't mean anything to me that he was coming in.
Yeah. WrestleMania had done a weak buy rate, too, so maybe there's something about the transition to digital cable in here, but, like, Rock and Hogan drew really well at No Way Out. I think that did, like, almost 500,000 buys.
Well, that's the fascinating thing, is that
just
WrestleMania...
the Hulkster, brother.
Yeah, WrestleMania and Backlash don't do that well, but No Way Out and Bad Blood.
Bad Blood,
that's what
Nash and the Hell in a Cell.
Those do well.
Like almost 400,000 buys, which is just a stunner that it outdrew Goldberg and Rock.
It's just weird that, like, No Way Out almost outdraws WrestleMania and Bad Blood almost outdraws Goldberg Rock.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say the Hell in a Cell still had a mystique back then.
Yeah, and I think people really underrated the interest in Nash, too.
Yeah.
Like, even if you were a WWE fan like me who wasn't interested in WCW, Nash was still a big deal. He was a big deal to both audiences.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually had, a history in the company that Goldberg lacked. And
exactly.
That Triple H storyline, while people, shat on it because it's Nash and it's Triple H and his clique buddies, was long and, like, well put together and emotional, and they built to it, and people cared when they paid it off.
If there's one thing that has been definitively proven throughout history, it's that casual fans care way more about the clique than smart fans wish they would.
Yeah. On Heat, Scott Steiner defeated Rico in 2 minutes and 27 seconds.
Damn shame we were robbed of that.
Dude, Scott Steiner came into this company, and we thought he was going to be a main eventer, and now he's on Heat wrestling Rico.
And I guess that was supposed to be the answer for if Goldberg doesn't come in. It was supposed to be Steiner. Like, God knows, we were supposed to get like 6 months of a Steiner mega push that they had to throw
maybe he was
going to
get the belt.
Yeah, he probably should have.
Yeah.
He probably should have, like, wrestled him for the belt at Mania or something. Like, this is bad. It's so bad.
Yeah. We get the opening package, and then the opening match is for the WWE Tag Titles as Team Angle defends against Los Guerreros. Team Angle won these belts from Eddie and Chavo back in November, so the Guerreros are finally getting their rematch here. I loved that Team Angle brought out a picture of Kurt with them, like he's this fallen martyr.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. Kurt's at home recovering from neck surgery, and like this just gives him a hilarious presence on the show.
I have not been the most gigantic proponent of tag team wrestling throughout our coverage of various shows. A lot of times when tag team wrestling is done badly, it's incredibly boring and tedious and samey. If all tag team wrestling was like Team Angle versus Los Guerreros, brother, I would watch nothing else for the rest of my life.
I think people sleep on Los Guerreros as a tag team because Eddie ended up having such an amazing singles run after this, but man, they were a fantastic team.
Everything about this is killer. And like Team Angle too, like I know we all acknowledge all the big matches that they were a part of, but like people don't give them specifically credit. They've been in the business for like a year. Yeah. Like they've been on the main roster for like 4 months and they're already one of the best tag teams on earth. It makes no sense.
No. So one kind of note that was in the dirt sheets at the time was that the company was really pushing the wrestlers to tone things down and take fewer bumps to try to prevent injuries. I think we did see that in this match, how it was a rough transition, but guys with enough talent could make it work. Because at the beginning, as they're doing a lot of mat wrestling and holds, the crowd is chanting boring. But they do win them over the course of the match, and they were on fire for the finish here.
And that was kind of the story of like 2003, is just like, okay, well, we got SmackDown making that work and Raw not making that work. And I'm not sure Raw ever really recovered during that period of just, they just couldn't keep up, or like the wrestlers that they had more trouble like reaching the audience. Or maybe the Raw audience is just less patient than the SmackDown audience became trained to be. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, SmackDown's got most of it. Most of the best wrestlers in the company are on SmackDown. SmackDown's got Angle and Benoit, the Guerreros, Mysterio. You look at Raw, they're a little thinner as far as guys who can really work in the ring.
That's definitely true. And like that makes Raw a much worse show to watch. Yeah. That's why SmackDown becomes this incredible dynamic presence.
Yeah. Unfortunately, SmackDown suffers from the Mr. McMahon character. Don't remember if we see him on this show or not, but his presence just looms over things.
Just like a fart somebody left in the room and you're trapped in there with it.
Yeah. Late in the match here, Eddie hits the frog splash, but he's not the legal man. Chavo eventually makes the cover, but Shelton pulls him off. Chavo goes for a suplex. Shelton trips him, and Haas falls on top and bridges into a pin as Shelton holds down his foot. Thought this was a really strong opener. Went about 15 minutes.
Absolutely love this opener. Los Guerreros are still heels here, but they're starting to show at this point. Yeah, they're starting to show what it is, especially after the match where they steal the picture of Kurt Angle and ride off in the lowrider with it. Oh wait, they steal the belts. They steal the belts, right?
Yeah, they like knock, like the picture gets like knocked over, but yeah, they swipe the belts and take off with them.
So good.
Yeah, they hit like simultaneous planches on both Haas and Benjamin and knock the picture over, and then they grab the tag belts and take off and like jump in their low riders and drive off.
I love a good steal the belts angle.
Yeah.
That's just the best shit.
Yeah, so they settle this next month in a ladder match where Chavo is injured and they swap in Tajiri to replace him.
And that's basically the moment they become babyfaces, because Tajiri is an untouchably babyface.
Yeah. Backstage, we've got America's favorite sex pest, Test, who is hanging
Dude,
out with. God, we've talked about this. How this just becomes Test's character in this era.
literally, okay. When we did the Invasion pay-per-view, we talked
Yes.
about how he won the I can't be fired for a year
Yeah.
battle royal. Okay? This is part of that year, I believe. Or no, like the year has passed,
No. Yeah, we're through that, but he's still a sex predator.
and like that's not even a joke. Literally, he's backstage here talking to Tori and literally is saying all the rapiest things you can imagine. Like, you know you want it. Hey girl, hey, why are you trying to say no? Grabbing her and like forcing literally he forces a kiss on her. Like, this is disgusting.
Like Tori slaps him and like walks away, and then Sable like walks out of her locker room like ready to cause some trouble, and this becomes our running story of the night.
And you think that she's going to go tell Stacy about what Tess did, but you don't understand the agent of chaos that MILF Sable is.
And that's where the Mr. McMahon character just looms over this, is Sable is his mistress.
Can I just point out too that like I haven't seen Sable from this era in a really long time. So when she comes walking out of that room, I like had a moment where I had to be like, "Oh God, you are much more attractive than I thought."
I always forget about this run.
Holy shit.
I can't believe she came back to this company.
She came back just to steal Brock, dude. It's my conspiracy theory.
She's got her hooks into Brock and fucked the company.
Just bails out after she takes the top star with her.
Next up, we've got Sean O'Haire versus Rikishi in a very strange match. Roddy Piper is out first to a big pop. He's O'Haire's mentor. He's carrying a basket of coconuts, which is an homage to the famous angle with Jimmy Snuka back in the 80s. Piper hit Rikishi with a coconut on Piper's pit a couple weeks ago. So this is Devil's Advocate Sean O'Haire, which is just like one of the great characters in wrestling history that flamed out. Like, I don't know what to like. There's a certain topic that if you bring up on a message board or like a Reddit or whatever, this will always come up. If you talk about like what were the greatest like video packages, like what were the best characters that like you wish had stayed around longer, like Devil's Advocate O'Haire was a phenomenal gimmick.
Like, it started with the video packages, which would literally just be like, hey, why do you go to church, man?
Yeah.
You know it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
You know you don't want to do that.
Won't God forgive you if you don't go?
Isn't that the whole idea? Why don't you stay home and watch football, Chief? I'm not telling you anything you don't already know.
It's like, why bother dieting? Just eat whatever you want. You'll be fine.
Say, cheat on your wife. Like, if she was so great, you wouldn't even want to cheat on her.
Yeah. And it's just him in like his black leather trench coat, like, or I think he wore like an all like black suit, black shirt, black tie, and he's just up against like a pure white background, like looking super satanic.
And like he has this look where now it looks so fucking dated, but like in the early thousands, that's what cool people look like, with like this like weird strung out hair. Like he basically looks like a magician in Las Vegas.
Yeah. And I mean, Sean O'Haire had he's like 6'4", like built, incredible body, 250 plus pounds,
incredibly athletic, could do swanton bombs and shit.
Bombs and drop kicks, moonsaults. But basically, it just never worked.
It's just, and this character worked so well in pre-taped vignettes. And then he came and he started doing like a couple of actual like promos. Like there was the one that famously with Brian Kendrick when he was first in, where O'Haire talks him into like streaking through the backstage.
Yeah, it was just the case that he could not do these promos in front of a live crowd. Like even though it was SmackDown and they could like edit it, like they couldn't just like stop and do another take like they can when they're doing it backstage.
And he just didn't have that charisma live. And also, this is a really hard character to bring to bear, you know? Like, finding situations to have this character be a part of, it's very difficult to, like, shoehorn this in, you know?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and he's just not the right guy for this. Like
No, like other people could have done it.
Raven would have crushed this character. A couple of years from now, CM Punk would have been incredible with this character, but yeah, he was not the right guy.
Like Bray could have taken it in the same direction instead of being more like demonic and shit. Like that's fine. You need an incredible promo to pull this off, and even if you do pull it off, like it's more of a vignette than it is a real person, you know?
Yeah, I'd never thought about how hard it is to integrate this into the show, but that is definitely an issue too. It's just like, how do you come up with situations to make this work every week?
I guess the best way, and we just referenced it about the WrestleMania hacker during the Otis thing, is just to have him do stuff like that, where he's just like, I'm going to expose the truth.
Yeah.
And just like, hey, you know what? Your girlfriend's been sleeping around on you, but I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. Just causing chaos, basically.
Rikishi has gotten so fat he's wrestling in a t-shirt.
Dude, that's so depressing.
It's not looking great here.
And basically his job is just to be like the big guy that other guys like job out.
Yeah,
and that's a really depressing end.
Big, but he's athletic enough that like he can get up for guys.
3 years ago, he was almost a main eventer.
Yeah. Rikishi sets up for the stink face. O'Haire kicks him in his giant ass to knock him away. Piper distracts Rikishi, and O'Haire hits him with a big kick. Piper gets in the ring again. He hands his coconut to the ref. Rikishi grabs the coconut, smashes Piper with it. O'Haire uses that distraction to get Rikishi like up on his shoulders and then throw him off with a slam. That was quite an impressive finishing move.
Yeah, the Widowmaker. It was basically like an FU with some stank on it.
Yeah.
What do you think about the idea of giving him Piper? Do you think that helped him or hurt him? I think it hurt him.
Yeah, because I think it just made him look even smaller in comparison. Like,
and the problem is, no one wants to boo Piper.
No, like Piper's so over as a babyface at this point.
They brought him back and kept trying to make him a heel, and like nobody fucking buys that.
Oh. Like he hadn't been a heel since 1985.
And he probably wanted to be a heel, and that's probably what this was. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, let me put one of the young kids over, but you can't. You're so much bigger than any of these kids, man.
No, he just outshone him so much.
This should have been like O'Haire versus Piper, not something else.
Yeah. Backstage, Sable stirs the pot by telling Stacy that she saw Tori kissing Test.
And baby faces are super dumb, so Stacy believes her, even though we've had weeks of television to indicate that she's incredibly evil and untrustworthy.
Then we see Rob Van Dam and Kane warming up backstage. They're the World Tag Team Champions on Raw. They've got a title defense against the Dudley Boys, and their nemesis, Chief of Staff Sean Morley, is going to be the special guest referee. And that's the next match. It's a World Tag title match. Van Dam and Kane defending against the Dudley Boys. Chief Morley is, of course, Val Venus. He's Bischoff's Chief of Staff, and he doesn't like Van Dam and Kane for reasons I can't really recall.
I don't...
Nope, can't place it.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah. He had been trying to get the Dudleys to, like, come be Bischoff's stooges, and they have, like, turned heel and joined Team Bischoff at this point.
But they're kind of uneasy about it. Like, they don't like being lackeys, so they're kind of tweeners at this point.
Yeah. The music was kind of weird here. Van Dam came out to like his instrumental theme, and then Kane came out to his original theme rather than the Finger 11 song. I don't know what the deal with that is.
I think they were trying to work out kind of a combined theme. I'm not sure they ever actually settled on one, to be honest.
No, I don't think they ever came out together.
It's weird. But there was something about RVD and Kane, and they should have been just like another one of these thrown together tag teams. But there was something about them that really worked together. And even in like the backstage promo before this, like it brought something out of RVD to have to be like the mouthpiece for a tag team for the first time in his career. I don't know, they just seem like two weirdos who click together.
They did. Kane had a talent for. I mean, same thing with Kane and Daniel Bryan. Kane in the Big Show, like one or two of the times they put him together. He had a talent for this.
Yeah. He was happy to be a background figure in his own tag team, and he was up for anything, and that's what you need.
This is one of my favorite iterations of Kane. Like
Like
this
talking Kane.
this gear, super jacked, like probably the best like wrestler he ever was. Like I'm a big fan of this Kane.
This is also the closest to like a normal person he ever was as a character, where he's just like, yeah, let's go kick these guys' asses and get back to the hotel, have some beers. That's this Kane. He just also happens to be a masked freak.
Yeah.
And I like that because that made him more accessible, and like it allowed a greater like variety of matches that he could have.
Kane and Van Dam controlled the first couple minutes. The Dudleys get the advantage. They hit the Wazop headbutt on Van Dam. That was already dated by 2003.
It was dated when they invented it.
Yes.
Sweet Jesus, it's dated here. They're still doing it now.
Yeah. It's almost cool again now, because like now it's been long enough that it's nostalgia.
It's fucking retro.
Double KO. Kane and Devon tag in. Kane comes in hot. He hits the sidewalk slam on Devon. Van Dam tags back in. He hits his diving super kick from the top rope. Rolling Thunder on Bubba. Devon catches Van Dam with a neck breaker off the turnbuckle, but when he turns around, Kane comes off the top rope with a flying lariat. Kane sets up for a choke slam, and Morley gets involved for the first time as he low blows Kane. Morley accidentally hits Bubba, and Devon beats him up. Lance Storm shows up. He hits a flying clothesline, but then gets hit with the Bubba bomb. Kane chokeslams Bubba. Van Dam hits the 5-star frog splash. Van Dam makes the cover, and a second referee comes in to count the pin, and the champions retain.
It's a good match.
Yeah.
It's a good match. I liked this whole like little Morley storyline is like a really good example of like a mid-card storyline done right.
Yeah. I don't know why they dropped this so soon. They're pretty much done with this at this point.
And Morley is like such like a heat magnet at this point. Like just to have like a mediocre underling trying to run the show, it's just such a hateful thing.
Yeah, and then he goes back to being Val Venus after this, and he never does anything of note again.
He just becomes the guy who wrestles heat matches against new guys they bring in.
Yeah. Backstage, Stacy confronts Tori in the locker room and attacks her.
And like they do this thing, which is the most painful thing on any television show or movie, where we know all the information necessary, and both of the people on screen should also be able to clearly communicate the information necessary. But they don't, because this is a story, and that would be inconvenient if they were able to talk like regular people. So Tori just says the complete wrong thing, just like, oh yeah, I kissed him, but, and then Stacy attacks her. Because like no one would ever start it that way. Oh, I fucking hate that in TV and movies. I hate it.
Next up, we got a women's title match as Trish Stratus defends against Jazz. Jazz is out first, accompanied by Teddy Long. Trish gets Jazz in the Boston Crab a couple minutes in. She transitions into the STF, but Jazz gets to the ropes. Trish hits the Stratus faction. She covers. Long takes off his shoe, throws it at Trish, and hits her in the head, causing her to break the cover. Seriously, who throws a shoe?
Fucking Teddy Long. What a fucking genius. I love it.
Jazz catches her in a pin and grabs the ropes to get the win. So Jazz is our new women's champion in a, kind of throwaway 5-minute match here.
Yeah, Jazz looked good. There were stretches here where Jazz looked like she was somebody that you could legitimately work with until she just kind of faded away. But at least this was something for Trish to do.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels and Booker T are hanging out backstage, and then Kevin Nash shows up too, and they talk about their match.
Trying to keep Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash in the same camera frame is so difficult.
Tough. Michaels isn't that short either. Nash is just that tall.
Yeah, you basically have to shoot it from below just to get all these three in the same camera shot.
Next up, we've got Rey Mysterio against the Big Show.
Yes.
Mysterio has embarrassed Big Show for the couple weeks leading up to this, and that's not going to end well for him here.
I love this match. I love anytime Rey Mysterio gets to face like a really gigantic person, but like the Big Show especially is such a perfect. I would have watched a million matches between these two. It's just such. Big Show is just such a perfect canvas for Rey Mysterio to paint all of his high-flying shenanigans on.
So much bigger. I mean, Rey, like, how tall is Rey actually? Like 5'5",
5'3" is what I've actually heard.
Tiny. Yeah, like Big Show is legitimately like a foot and a half taller than him.
And the amazing thing too is like the lengths they have to go in order to convince you that Rey Mysterio could actually win this match are immeasurable, but they do it in like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
like
it's a very short match.
If Rey can just keep going and be perfect, eventually he could maybe do this. And they make you believe for like a minute that it could actually happen, and then real life just smacks you right in the face. It's just a metaphor for real life, actually.
Indeed. Mysterio is able to stick and move at first, but Show catches him and squashes him like a bug. Rey gets a chair, hits Show in the head with it. He hits a flying senton. He hits a series of 3-6-1-9s. But when he goes for the West Coast pop, Show catches him out of the air and hits him with a gigantic choke slam for the pin. Gets him up like 10 feet in the air.
I mean, like, an irresponsible choke slam. The kind of choke slam you put on, like, your buddy at the pool, where you're just like, fuck you! I'll throw you up as high as I can.
Yeah. But the really irresponsible part comes after this.
Oh. And you've all seen the GIF, ladies and gentlemen.
They load Rey onto a bodyboard. Show comes back, picks up the board, and swings it like a baseball bat into the ring post, and then just drops the thing, and Rey just lands right on his fucking head. Like, forehead just slams right into the floor without his arms to protect him. Easily could have concussed him.
I think it's pretty clear that what was supposed to happen is Big Show wasn't supposed to drop him. I think just like when he hit the post, he hit it so hard.
Drop him flat on his back, yeah.
Yeah, I think it just like it reverberated against his hands and he just had to drop it. I don't think he meant to do that.
I would hope it was an accident because, yeah, this was super dangerous.
But at the same time, it's one of the more impressive looking things I've ever seen in my life.
It's so brutal. Like, it's
and here's the thing.
Disgusting.
You know what occurred to me when I was watching this too? Is like Big Show never got to do job matches.
No.
Like when it was time to warm him back up, they just had him squash normal people. Why didn't we ever get to see him just wrestling local jobbers? Because this made Big Show
done to them.
This made Big Show look like the most impossible to beat king who ever lived. And just him doing like that Cobra Clutch backbreaker shit he did in ECW and just doing his whole awesome moveset. Just a little bit of that would have gone so far to make the Big Show look unbeatable. Instead, he always just got like 3 weeks of beating normal people and then jobbed out.
Yeah, this was one of the times where they were trying to push him again. He gets pretty big push for the next couple months.
I just want Cruiserweight Bully Big Show so bad because he would be the king of the Cruiserweight bullies.
Lillian Garcia interviews Triple H, Flair, and Jericho. Jericho rips on Shawn Michaels, Triple H rips on Kevin Nash, and Flair rips on Booker T, because I guess somebody has to. Booker's really become an afterthought at this point.
Flair does Booker T a favor by mentioning that he's also in this match.
And who's the other guy? Booker T? Yeah, fuck him too.
Poor Booker.
Yeah.
I
sinking like a stone.
I didn't love this because the idea of Triple H and Chris Jericho being buddy-buddy makes no fucking sense to me.
No, they should have gotten into it a little bit here. Jericho should have said, like, yeah, once we get done with this, I'm coming for the title.
It could have been something just as easy as being like, we don't see eye to eye on anything. I hate you. But you know who I hate more than you? Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's all it is.
History should exist. guys are like heels and faces don't all have to be best buds.
Yeah, on that topic, why is Booker T cool with teaming with Kevin Nash and Shawn
Yeah.
Michaels, who booted him out of the NWO 9 months ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't make sense.
Tori and Stacy are still fighting backstage. Stacy gets thrown into a filing cabinet and a box of stuff falls on her head. Scott Steiner picks her up to carry her to the trainer, and Test shows up to complain. What a shitty boyfriend he is.
I have to give Andrew Martin, the man who plays Test, credit.
Yeah.
Because this is a role. By all accounts, he was an incredibly nice guy. He dated many of the divas pretty seriously. Like, he and Kelly Kelly were actually very, very close. Like, by all accounts, not a scumbag. Okay?
Yeah. Plays a great one on TV, though.
He portrays maybe the most effective high school bully, quarterback of the football team, scumbag rapist that I've ever seen on camera.
Magnificent.
And it just sucks that that's your gift, right? That's the one character you were born to play. But man, he's killing it. They don't do anything with it. Like, you would imagine that the heat he gets from this would lead somewhere. It leads to a tag team between him and Steiner to make Stacy happy.
Yes.
That's weird.
Next up, we've got our WWE title match as Brock Lesnar defends against John Cena. Cena's out first. He's wearing a New York Yankees jersey in Massachusetts to get heat. He does a little rap, and then Brock comes out. Brock is the fucking man at this point.
Oh, yeah, he's the guy. Like, it's not even any fucking question about that.
He's incredibly over as a face at this point. Brock Lesnar as a babyface is always a little tough, but I think they make it work here. Like, Cena is built enough that it feels credible when he's wearing him down.
Yeah, see, this is the fascinating thing about it to me, is that they spent so much time making Brock Lesnar impervious to everything that they have to, like, kind of slowly start walking that back so that people can actually make him look vulnerable to some extent. And they do a good job here because Cena's not on his level, but, like, Cena fights just as dirty as you can possibly fight. And, like, in the run up to this, he just keeps catching Lesnar with belt shot after belt shot after belt shot and hit him with the chain and, like, sneak up behind him. And just, you can outthink Lesnar. Lesnar's not creative or crafty.
Not the brightest guy. He's just a force of nature.
And the idea that, like, John Cena's just a dirty fighting scumbag who's going to come for him, it's effective. It works here really well.
Yeah. Brock handles Cena for the early part of the match, but then when they go to the floor, Cena runs him into the steps and it cuts Brock open. Brock is losing blood as Cena locks in a long choke. Salty crowd tonight, starts chanting boring like 30 seconds into the choke.
I feel like they chanted boring during another match too. Like, they're just not very receptive.
It's just like, come on, guys. Like, this is like a 15-minute match. There's going to be some rest holds in there. Like, this made total sense with the story of the match, that Cena's trying to wear Lesnar down.
And I gotta say, too, like, Lesnar and Cena are both very, very green at this point.
Oh, yeah. Combined, 5 years between them?
This is arguably the first match either guy had high profile, not against a veteran. Like, they're both, like, the young guy in this match. So I don't know who calls it or whatever, but, like, this is great. They do a great job of pacing this out.
Yeah, that is good. I would have to imagine, like, they worked with, I don't remember who the agents are at this point, but Arn Anderson or whoever, and, like, Arn, worked out Finlay, worked out, like, the entire match move for move, because you would not want these guys calling anything in the ring at this point.
But even so, like, they do a great job. Like, this doesn't look like two rookies in the ring together at all.
Brock gets to his feet with Cena on his back and runs him into the corner. Brock hits a series of clotheslines, a power slam. Cena catches Lesnar with a neck breaker. Brock recovers and runs Cena into the corner. Cena grabs his chain and he wraps it around his hand, and the crowd is actually now chanting for Cena.
You can already sort of see here that Cena's really cool.
Yeah, he just is. Lesnar catches Cena with the F5 and gets the pin. Match that definitely overachieved expectations. It's remarkable that they were so patient with Cena. Like, he doesn't win the US title for another year after this.
Yeah, it's stunning that they don't follow this up. Like, this is such a good match that you would imagine they do at least run it back a little bit. But no, like they basically like, all right, send him to the bottom and make him work his way all the way back up.
Yeah, I just feel like today, if somebody started to get this kind of momentum, they'd get the belt within like 6 weeks.
Oh God, yeah.
Like if somebody, yeah, somebody's working with the top babyface in the company and the crowd starts chanting for them, they'd just be like, "Oh, put the belt on him right now."
Oh yeah, they would have given him like the U.S. title the next day just
Oh,
to have
fuck
as like
yeah.
a bauble.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's another year till he gets the US title and then another year after that until he gets the world title. And the
And they,
crowd still turns on him.
yeah, but like they build it for so long that by the time that he actually gets belts, people
Yeah.
are so happy because they're like, this is our guy. We chose
Yeah.
him.
And they don't really turn him face until like Survivor Series.
That's the really surprising thing is that you can see right here what's coming.
Oh yeah. They keep him heel for a long time after this.
Nobody who can cut a promo like that in modern wrestling gets to stay heel long.
Nope. Next up, we've got the six-man tag match: Kevin Nash, Booker T, and Shawn Michaels against Triple H, Ric Flair, and Chris Jericho. Jericho's out first. He's here to get revenge on Michaels for beating him at WrestleMania. Flair is out second. Weirdly, he comes out to his early 90s WWF theme. It's just kind of a night of weird music edits here on the network.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, no idea. And then Triple H is out last for his team. He's wearing the purple trunks from WrestleMania, and to get even more heelish, he's added a pair of purple boots.
What a king.
I think he looks great.
I think purple's like so his fucking color. That he's king of kings. That's the regal color, baby. Purple it up.
Yeah, and just nice mix up from him wearing all black all the time.
Absolutely. It makes a clear visual distinction that this is heel Triple H, the dickhead.
And he's clean shaven, which makes him look like a complete asshole.
There are some people in this world who, when they're clean shaven, they look like babies, or when they're clean shaven, they look like this or like that. But there's a few people who, when they don't have facial hair, literally look like smarmy assholes.
Yeah, just like the most like preppy trust fund douchebag you've ever met.
And that's why Triple H knows this about himself, which is why he's always had facial hair.
Yep.
But it's such a great heel move for him to be clean shaven here now that he's like the corporate dude.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so like, fuck you. You look like a landlord. Get out of here.
You can just instantly tell how heelish Triple H is by his facial hair. Is clean shaven or like the Harley race, like mutton chops and mustache, the most heelish Triple H?
Clean shaven's the most heelish, but only because like mutton chop Harley race is just him being heelish towards the viewers. Because he's like, this is my I don't give a fuck look. I'm going to be mailing this shit in.
And then Booker's out, and he's got a weird music too. Did they release like one of those weird albums around this time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Mysterio came out to his too. Like this was the one where they did their own music.
Aggression or whatever?
No. It wasn't called Aggression, but it was.
Something
God, I
like
can't
that.
remember what it was called. But yeah, like
Not Forcible Entry.
Jericho recorded his own music, and Booker did too, and so did Mysterio, and that was the one where Rikishi did his too, where he's like put a little stank on it.
Put a little ass on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that album was called. But yeah, that was right before this. So yeah, that's why everyone's themes are all weird.
Shawn comes out looking extra leather daddy.
Gosh. He can only... I know that mostly they have people make their outfits for them, but like, do you think he would just go into like leather fetish shops and be like, hey, I'm a Christian, but I'm gonna need your finest leather daddy look today?
Apparently, God, the hat and like the collar around the neck, like, oh boy.
Let me be clear. that's not a coincidence. I don't know Shawn Michaels in real life. I don't know what his life was like in the 90s. But if in the 90s you're coming out with all of that, you're at least a little bi-curious. I'm just saying.
Nash is out last. He's got kind of dieselish music. He's got, the black leather pants and the black tank top, but not the black hair, so it's not all the way diesel.
It's a good. I feel like it's a really good like compromise between the two.
Yeah.
Where like you definitely get like if you're a WCW fan or a Diesel fan, you're getting what you want. You know what I mean? Both ways.
That's probably fair. They trade the advantage for the first couple minutes. Shawn catches Flair with sweet chin music, but Triple H comes in and gets him with the pedigree. Triple H is just avoiding Nash. If Nash tags in, Triple H is getting out of there. The heels then get heat on Shawn. Nash tags in. He finally gets his hands on Triple H. Nash slams Jericho. Triple H goes for the pedigree on Nash, but Nash backdrops out of it. Nash sets up for the jackknife, but Jericho hits him with a missile drop kick. Booker hits the scissors kick on Jericho, and then he breaks out the spinneroonie. Michaels tunes up the band, but Jericho hits him with a bulldog. Flair locks on the figure four. Jericho locks Michaels in the walls of Jericho. Nash breaks it up. Nash tries to jackknife Jericho. Flair cuts him off, but Nash throws Flair out to the floor. Jackknife on Jericho. Triple H comes in, gets him with a sledgehammer shot behind the referee's back, and then covers Nash for the pin. Feel like it would have made more sense for Nash to get the pin on Triple H here to set him up as a strong challenger for the belt.
Or to at least beat Flair.
Yeah, have been Flair.
Doesn't fucking matter if Flair loses. Yeah. Or for Triple H to beat like Booker T and to like go face to face with Nash afterwards. Just something like that. Like it doesn't make any sense.
No, it's
for
just,
Nash to take a pin.
The era where Triple H beats everybody.
I guess. Here's the other beautiful thing about a six-man tag. If you had just heard Steve describe that, you may not know that match was 18 minutes long and it felt like 5. That's the beautiful thing about a six-man tag. Yeah. Is there's so many different combinations of people that like it never really gets old. Like you're just constantly going into new stuff. That's why those Shield matches were so damn good, even though they were like 40 minutes long. Like you don't even notice. There's just so much kinetic action happening.
Terry is backstage with The Rock. Rock says he's done everything except make a white baby. What the fuck was that about?
I think he was implying that he wanted to fuck Terry, Steve.
Yeah, I bet he was.
I mean, yeah.
This was quite a promo.
Here's the thing. Every once in a while, like, obviously Rock was just left to his own devices when it came to promos. He could just say whatever he wanted. He would just get like, here's 5 minutes, just say whatever the fuck. And usually, he would have a level of focus that would allow him to get from point A to point B relatively efficiently. But sometimes, and we saw this a lot more after he came back,
yeah,
he would just have this like nervous energy where he just couldn't stay on point. And he would just keep going in every fucking direction until you had no idea what the hell he was talking about. This is one of those.
Rock asks what the people think and they boo. He says you could wipe a cockatoo's ass with what the people think. And like Terry looks at him quizzically and he says it was the only animal he could think of.
Just the idea that he would admit to that in the middle of the promo.
Oh, he then says he's going to beat Goldberg because Goldberg is a whisker biscuit, bald-headed bitch.
Can I just say this, though? Rock had a way of turning a phrase.
Yeah, he did.
The phrase whisker biscuit means nothing.
Nope.
Yet, in my head, it has so perfectly described Goldberg for his entire life. I don't know what it is. Whisker biscuit was just so catchy for me that every time I see Goldberg, I think Whisker Biscuit.
Whisker Biscuit, motherfucker.
It doesn't make any sense, but somehow nothing The Rock ever said made sense. But it would somehow be close enough that your mind would just stick on it.
All right, it's main event time. The match the world has come to see, The Rock against Bill Goldberg. Rock out first with his amazing Hollywood entrance and a mixed reaction from the crowd.
Is this the best pair of entrances? Like, not fancy special
They
entrances?
really are. Yeah, like the Hollywood Rock entrance with the long shot of LA, long helicopter shot of LA, and the like kind of dreamlike music, and then just is
Is cooking.
cooking. Doom, 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 doom. Yeah. And the way the lights all go down on the screen, and then on the is cooking, it lights up and he comes out. Perfect.
And it's one of those things where like it's meant to be heelish. Like it's meant to be like he's making you wait and he's
Yeah.
all Hollywood now, but it's too cool. It's too cool to boo.
Yeah. Then Goldberg out second. He gets his classic entrance where they knock on his locker room door and he, kicks it open. He also gets a mixed reaction. He's in phenomenal shape, like has not lost a
Just
step physically at all.
astounding shape.
Yeah.
Like it's always been so fascinating to me when we'd watch these shows because you watch a whole show of people in just phenomenal athlete shape, right? And then every once in a while, somebody will walk out and you'll be like, whoa, all those other guys are in pathetic, horrible shape compared to this motherfucker. And Goldberg was just one of those guys.
Yeah. Just an amazing physique, and he's just somehow never lost it.
That's
like,
I
people
don't care.
talk about steroids, and it's just like a lot of guys in wrestling are on steroids. He looks better than all of them.
Yeah, you want to know what steroids without working out looks like? Go look at Triple H in late 2003 when he looked like he was an inflatable man.
Yeah. Like,
That's what steroids do to you
they
if you don't
just
do other
let
stuff.
you recover faster. It doesn't mean you don't have to work.
This motherfucker, he must work out every hour of the day that he's not actively working on a car.
And like to look that good, you got to diet too. Is the other thing. Like he's being disciplined in what he's eating.
He's a special guy. I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to appreciate him later in his career because I hated him so intensely during this period that I didn't appreciate any of this.
Yeah, I didn't hate him. I just felt sorry for him because I was like, I know he's good, and yet everything he does in this company sucks.
Yeah, since I hadn't
It's
seen
just
any of the good stuff, every
there's
week
just
when he's
some
come out,
guys who didn't. It's like Vader was never right in the WWF. There's just some guys who don't work in some companies.
no, it's almost like no main event guy who was made a main eventer in WCW made it in WWE. And you could almost say that that's intentional on Vince's part.
It does with Goldberg. I think they were trying and they just didn't get it. Like,
Yeah.
and like, when they did something to wrestle with on him, like Bruce was super defensive and he was just like, well, what, were we just going to have him beat everybody? And it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
you were going to
motherfucker.
have him beat everybody. And then he was going to put somebody over at WrestleMania. Like, it's not hard. It's what they did with Ronda Rousey. She came in for a year and she put Becky Lynch over at WrestleMania.
You just did that shit with Brock.
Yeah.
And I
Like,
think when Bruce says that, he's like showing you what Vince thought. It's just like,
yes.
cool, I'm just going to bring this WCW guy in and have him beat everybody? Fuck that.
Ugh. Yeah.
It's not one of my guys.
Yeah. You have him beat everybody and then you have him put over Brock at WrestleMania.
Because Goldberg's not a guy you can have that you can play wishy-washy with. Like, he's not a do some
And he's
jobs
not
and
meant to have super long runs. A year is a good run for him. He can do a year, and then he should probably go away for a little while. And he's kind of mastered that late in his career here, that he just shows up, does a couple matches, and he takes off. And
He
then
was
when he comes
bo-
back, it's fresh.
he was born to be a part-timer. Yes,
Yeah.
that's absolutely right.
Um, he's wearing the black trunks he wore in WCW rather than the black and white shorts that he would wear later in his run, and it's kind of become his signature WWE look. What's your preference? It looked weird. Honestly, the black trunks just kind of looked weird to me here because it was like too Austin-ish, is I think probably why they changed it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what it is. I mean, I didn't have any particular preference between the two. And WWE just always like, we want to brand your look. Like, nobody
Yeah.
just gets to look like a plain generic creator wrestler. That's
Except
not what they
Steve
do.
Austin, the biggest draw they ever had.
Yeah, but to the extent that, like, since he was the only one allowed to do it, it became his distinctive look.
That's fair. Crowd is split early on. There's dueling Goldberg and Rocky chants. They lock up. Goldberg just throws Rock to the mat, and Rock yells, "You're in trouble now," at him. Holly Rock is so fucking funny.
Like, I don't think any of us realized that Rock had the potential just to do, like, improv on this level. Just to, like, constantly come up with quips immediately that killed. Like,
in the ring during his matches.
And he was one of the first people I ever remember taking advantage of the fact that he knew that the people at home could hear him when he said stuff. Like, he would just talk for the camera so we could hear it. I don't really remember a ton of that before this.
They lock up again. Goldberg throws Rock, like, all the way out to the floor. Rock gets back in. He slaps Goldberg, and Goldberg clotheslines him over the top rope back to the floor. Goldberg gets in the ring, and Goldberg hits Rock with a rock bottom.
The best rock bottom I've ever seen. He lifts him up like a choke slam and takes him down.
Spikes him with this.
That should have become part of his repertoire, man. That looked great.
He sets up for the spear, but Rock dodges it, and Goldberg goes right into the ring post. Only way to make Goldberg vulnerable is to have him hit the ring post.
That was my favorite thing, is that literally there was only one way to beat Goldberg, and that's let him hit the ring post.
It's like a video game, boss. He's only got one weakness.
But if they had the ring post pads like New Japan has, with like the big ones that block all three, you could never beat Goldberg.
Oh, just bounce right off of him. Rock puts him in the sharpshooter. Goldberg manages to get to the ropes to break it. Rock hits Goldberg right in the dick with a punch.
Loved it.
Goldberg pops up, hits the spear using his bad shoulder. Both guys are down. Rock hits a spine buster, and he kips up. He hits the rock bottom. Goldberg kicks out. A lot of boos for that.
People, there's no other way to say it. People wanted Rock to win this match.
They did.
Like, at least the fans in the live crowd did, and I sure did at home.
They were cheering for the WWF guy.
That's how I felt. I didn't care that Rock was supposed to be a heel, especially since he was too damn entertaining to actually be a heel.
And if they had gotten Goldberg in during the invasion. I've always felt like Goldberg alone, maybe he couldn't have saved it, but it would have, like, at least if we had gotten to do Goldberg Austin, it would have felt worth it.
He's just such a bigger threat than anybody else.
Yeah, like because he would have been credible in a way that, like, Booker T and DDP just weren't able to be.
And he would have been a big enough name that he could have busted through, like, your Jerichos and stuff and made the whole alliance seem credible.
Rock hits another spine buster and then the people's elbow. Goldberg kicks out again. Rock is in disbelief. He takes forever to get up, which allows Goldberg to recover and hit him with the spear. Loud Goldberg sucks chant breaks out. Rock takes forever to stand up and turn around and get speared again. And then Goldberg hits the jackhammer and gets the pin. Thought this was an excellent match, but too bad the crowd took a shit on Goldberg here.
I gotta say, putting him up against Rock right away, like, in retrospect, there was no choice. It was the only way he was coming in at all. And, like, obviously you got to get that match while you can because Rock's leaving. But it was a bad idea for Goldberg because Rock ate him up in terms of crowd reaction. Like, that's just, Rock was eating everyone alive. He ate Austin alive at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That's just
he ate
what
Hogan
happened.
up at No Way Out. Like, he had become such a great worker, and he was not toning himself down.
Yeah. Like, this is the closest. It's ironic that he hates Shawn Michaels because this character is the closest to 90 Shawn Michaels that I've ever seen another character be. Yeah. Where he's just like, I'm more entertaining than you. Fuck you. Get on my level or get out. And I'm sure he didn't see it that way. I'm sure he was just trying to have a good time. But that's what it became. It's just like everyone but the Hurricane got consumed alive. Yeah. And so, like, Goldberg right off the bat gets off on the wrong foot with the WWE audience because he's not The Rock. It's not his fault.
Would have been nice if they could have given him like a Mark Henry or like A-Train squash here.
If what happens the month after, where he like beats Mark Henry and he like has a little thing with Christian, and like you have the feud with Jericho, if that happens first, I think that's so much better for Goldberg.
Yeah, just he really wanted to work with The Rock. Be
Yeah.
careful what you wish for.
If this match had been what we got at WrestleMania, except The Rock wins, that's probably the ideal run for Goldberg.
Yeah.
Because this feels like the climactic match, and it's weird that it's his first one.
Yeah. So that is a wrap for this pay-per-view. I thought this was pretty good.
It's amazing. Like, if you go back and look at this card, man, it's stunning that we got this. That a card could just be this fucking loaded from top to bottom. It's just out of control. Like, every match here delivered on some level. I even liked Sean O'Haire versus Rikishi.
Yeah.
I like
fun to get to see that. Fun to get to see that O'Haire character again, because it's something I always kind of reminisce about.
And this is another one of those things where like we talk about all the time, these sort of like potential turning points. So here you have Nash coming back. You got Goldberg coming in. This Cena kid is on the rise. Big Show looks like a dynamic threat all of a sudden. Fans love Kane and Van Dam. The Sean O'Haire kid's coming in. Suddenly you have all these acts that people are interested in.
Doesn't work out.
All of them are going in the shitter by SummerSlam.
Yeah.
It sucks. But you have, it's just one of those things where like when we drop in like we do and look, we're like, man, how did things go wrong? Everything looks so good right now.
Yeah. Coming off like a WrestleMania that didn't do business but was loaded with classic matches. It definitely feels like they're in a good place and in strong shape going forward. And yet, yeah, 03 ends up being a pretty disastrous year on the whole.
Yeah, just look at the WrestleMania we wind up getting the next year, where it's like Angle versus Eddie and Benoit versus Triple H versus Michaels. You don't see any of that shit coming here because they have to rewrite the whole roster on the fly.
No, I mean, actually, it's kind of crazy who's not on this card when you look at it. Like, no Hogan, no Undertaker, no Benoit, and yet the card is still stacked. Is how like strong this team is right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So next time we got something that I'm excited about. I didn't intend to do it this way, but we've got another John Cena versus Brock Lesnar match. It's Extreme Rules 2012. Brock Lesnar's return to pro wrestling after an 8-year absence.
This is, gosh, it would be hard to explain to anybody who wasn't watching at the time just how controversial this was, if that's the right word for it. Just the degree to which people lost their goddamn minds and how excited they were to have Brock back.
Oh my God. When he came back, you just think about where they were at that time. Again, it was such a moment of hope where like Punk has really started to get over. Like they've got The Rock back and now they've got Brock Lesnar. Like Brock Lesnar at that point has become one of the biggest stars in all sports. He's the biggest draw in the history of the UFC, and he's coming back to WWE, and he's still in his prime.
It's just, and the way he came back was so cool and perfect, and it set up so nicely. And this is one of those moments, one of those like diverting points, the forks in the road in WWE history.
What were they thinking having him lose that match to Cena?
If he wins, if they don't blow it, how are things different? It's a big deal. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we will get into that and, some other kind of crazy shenanigans on that card next week. We've got a street fight between Chris Jericho and CM Punk for the WWE title. 2 out of 3 falls match between Daniel Bryan and Sheamus and some other fun stuff. So all that and more next time on the Lawcast.